I was born here in New York City on 148th Street on September 11th, 1965. And it was a very strange upbringing because I grew up in a very wealthy town, Darien, Connecticut, but my mother and I were dirt poor. I mean, she was an out-of-work painter and she smoked a lot of pot and she had hippie friends. So by day, you know, I would be at school with my friends whose parents were Wall Street executives. And then I'd come home to my mom and her Hells Angel boyfriend smoking pot and, you know, playing guitar and listening to loud rock music. So it was a really strange upbringing. Like, I was really self-conscious about everything, you know, like about the fact that we lived in a tiny house with thrift shop furniture, the fact that all my clothes came from Salvation Army or from Bradley's, which was this really like low-rent ghetto chain store. For most of my life, I desperately wanted to fit in. Started playing music when I was 9 years old. And also, when I was young, like no other art form affected me as strongly as music did. I had all these bottled up emotions and music was the only way I could express them. But also it was a way of sort of putting myself out in the world. And then when I was around 13 or 14, I discovered punk rock, and I also discovered 20th century art and literature. And I mean, 20th century art, music, and literature, it's all about sort of the celebration of disenfranchisement. And to me, this was like a remarkable realization that actually conformity was the enemy, and the rebel and the outsider were the heroes and the people to be championed. So then I discovered punk rock, and instead of trying to fit in, my friends and I just rejected, suburban culture. I mean, in a very gentle way. We were 15 years old, so it's like, we didn't suddenly become heroin addicts sleeping in dumpsters. We were still living in the suburbs, but playing in punk rock bands and dyeing our hair with leopard spots and putting safety pins through our noses and getting beaten up in high school. But it was all really pretty gentle. And then the band I was in high school were called the Vatican Commandos. The thing that I really responded to in punk rock was the notion of, well, obviously like the DIY aspect, that anybody can do anything. If you want to make a record, you don't need $1 million recording studio with a big record contract. You just need a microphone, essentially. The first record that my punk rock band made, the sound quality is terrible, but it's really exciting. So the DIY aspect, and also the punk rock ethos of acknowledging that so many seemingly like sacrosanct mores and standards are actually really arbitrary. So many of the things that people take so seriously are quite arbitrary. It also seems like as time has passed, people have come to recognize this arbitrariness more, but like American culture in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s, especially in the 80s with like the return of like conservatism in the Reagan generation, it was all about, flag waving and Christian values, which was a very fertile environment for crazy punk rockers. Because when you're a 15-year-old hormone-fueled adolescent punk rocker, you know that flag waving Christianity is just a bunch of nonsense. And it was so easy to upset people. All you have to do is burn a flag on stage and suddenly everyone in your school is outraged, but that was the point. It's like, there's something really thrilling and fun about pissing people off. And unfortunately, I have sort of maintained that ethos as well, because I've managed to piss off a lot of people. Fame, especially weird fame, is schizophrenic. Having a degree of fame or success, one is the way it alters the way you perceive yourself, especially vis-a-vis the way other people perceive you, because everybody perceives you differently. A majority of people have no idea who I am, or maybe like in passing they've heard my name. There are some people who are intimately familiar with me and my work and they hate me for it, and there are some people who are intimately familiar with me and my work and they love me for it. There are people who are obsessive, there are people who are repulsed by me, and so it's just really strange. Every single person you meet, more often than not, has some preconceived notion of who you are before you've ever had any interaction with them. And you never know what their preconceived notion is going to be. So it's crazy. I mean, it's because I genuinely never expected to have anything resembling success. When I first started making my own records, my idea of success was to sell 2,000 or 3,000 copies of a record, and maybe, if I was really lucky, to DJ in Europe. Even that seemed unattainable. So any success that I've had really seems utterly accidental, and I'm still trying to figure out what it means.